We're at week 10 with relationships, and this is going to be one on a series that we're going to kick off for Mental Fortress Mondays, looking at relationships. And our first topic is going to be some of the relationship with yourself, and specifically looking at confidence. And we're going to get to how it's important in just a minute. We're going to start off with something a little bit different, and it's going to be a bit of an activity. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing is totally fine. You can actually incorporate this in if you're making breakfast or getting ready for work or just sitting and listening. And I want you to prepare yourself for the idea of confidence. So think of right now what your posture is. Arms, legs, however you're standing. And then just take a second to think about how you think of confidence. And now take on that posture. What changes? Do you sit up a little bit straighter? Maybe your shoulders are back a little bit more. Maybe your stance is even a little bit wider with your arms or your legs. Just notice how it feels to do that. Sometimes it can almost feel a little bit unfamiliar or even awkward. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes there's almost even a vulnerability in this new posture, this new shape that feels really different. And the most important part in this activity is just to notice those differences. What were you feeling before, and what are you feeling now, taking on that stance of confidence, and how was that different? Welcome to Mental Fortress Mondays. I'm Cheryl Karthaus, trained as a naturopathic doctor. I'm currently not practicing. Our mission is to provide a space here that we can understand the who, what, where, when, why, how of mindfulness, and just explore how we can really make our minds resilient. We've all experienced different kinds of stress throughout this pandemic time, and it's been pretty extreme. And for many, and all the people I've talked to definitely have had different experiences with different roles and juggling, being with people 24/7 or being alone, which is the complete opposite, but still in itself, all of these things can be really stressful. And as we're opening things up, at least we are here in Nova Scotia, it's going to be a bit of a switch as well to see how those relationships are going to be navigated and with others as well as with ourselves. Side note, I think it'll be really interesting to see how we start to relate to one another, because with our masks and you can't see people, even providing that empathy towards each other is going to be really different. I'm curious to see how that goes. Maybe it's something we'll explore a little bit more. So to start off, we're going to explore relationships and how this is going to change what our society is going to look like, how our interrelationships change. Most importantly, in my opinion, what we're going to start with is our relationship with ourselves. Definitely navigating some of the changes that we've been through, and then some of the changes that are still going to come up can either be really difficult and add to the stress, or we can come out of them being a little bit more resilient. And that's sort of our mission here, is that we're going to take a mindful approach and learn the things that we can learn in order to make this process easier and really to become more resilient, so we're better off on the other side. There's definitely been good changes in my life from that, so I'm confident that there can be in yours as well. So today we're going to go over the ideas, as I mentioned, of confidence. And this is along the same stream or the same line as being allied with yourself, being able to make really good choices and do good things and be fully aligned with that ideal self that you want to be. Over the past several years and definitely months, as we've even been doing the Mental Fortress Mondays together, I've developed a couple theories, and as I do more work on my own mental resilience, I've understood that it's our perception of our identity that is ultimately one of the most important factors that create our thoughts and our behaviors, and then consequently our reactions, especially in the face of stress. When we think of negative things, or we think negatively of ourselves and of this identity, we tend to have lower resources then to deal with stress. We think negative things about our identity, and then that affects our mood. It will decrease, possibly increase anxiety and depression, and even depressed feelings can increase. And this is just one of the aspects that lead us to sort of have this or to lose this oomph in our step. And we have then fewer mental resources and emotional resources to really deal with any of this stress or any of the new things that are going to come about. And there'll be a lot of new things in the next little bit. And then because of that, we consequently succumb to burnout much easier. It can be hard for us to make some of these really good and helpful choices for ourselves on a regular basis, and that consistency can be really difficult. We tend to self-sabotage even our own personal choices. So something as food, exercise, the activities we're engaging in, maybe we're binging on Netflix because we just have a little bit of this inner depressed feeling, I would say. And then we can also then consequently sabotage our relationships. And that then is more of an ongoing thing that can affect us in the future, affect us in the now, and affect really everybody around us and what comes out of that. When we're confident in our own identity, conversely, we feel worthy, we feel aligned with exactly who we want to be, and we can feel empowered. We behave very differently in these circumstances compared to when we feel that our identity is threatened or judged. When asked about confidence, people often end up engaging in a discussion about being good at one thing or another, or a few things, but not good at everything. Their confidence is high in particular areas, and they have maybe more experience in these, or they've gone through enough events that they've actually had challenges along these lines that then they've been able to work through, or that there's been a challenge, they've sort of met it head on, and they've actually been able to then come through it. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. In relation to yourself, question for you. How confident are you that you're aligned 100% with this identity, with this true person that you want to be? It doesn't mean that maybe you have to be that person ultimately right now, but that you are aligned and that every choice you make, everything you do throughout the day, even every thought and every action keeps you in alignment with that ultimate identity of yourself. And how often do you actually feel like this, that you have confidence in that? There's a few things that can contribute to the feeling of confidence in your identity, and they all actually come from you or from us. Our own thoughts, fortunately, are under our own control. And this means that no matter what the behavior is of someone else or the circumstances we find ourselves in, we do ultimately have the ability to change what we're thinking. Much easier said than done. And it's not always even in the particular moment that we're able to sort through that, but that it could be more after the fact that we're able to come back or to rejig how we think about a particular event even after it's happened. As we discussed last week, there's often thoughts that ruminate in our heads around negative feelings of a situation. And these unhelpful negative thoughts is where we spend much of our time, and that actually creates more of who you are and who we are and how we're reacting or how we're relating to people and how we're going forward in life. So really being able to shift some of those thoughts, even if they're after the fact, is going to make a big difference. Confidence is one of the elements that help us align with that true self, with that identity that we want to be. And it helps us to align with positive inspiration that we can find within ourselves. And I know that for sure, personally, I want to build this overall confidence so that I can be more of my authentic self in all of these different situations. I want to be more confident in my decisions. I want to be more confident in my words and my behaviors. and spend much more time being grateful and sitting in those positive experiences and those positive thoughts, and then relate to the world that way. How amazing would that be if everyone that you ran into was just had this beautiful energy of being grateful and just a big, hug on their face, just this big hug that you would encounter. That might change if we're actually hugging these days, but you can still feel that for sure. And if we want all of these, we can certainly have them. This would bring us farther away from the self-doubt, from the feelings of unworthiness, from doubting yourself or doubting your decisions, from second-guessing your words or actions, and then again from taking away from these stories that we get in our heads of reigniting these negative emotions, and then consequently these negative bodily sensations that we carry, and then really this sort of a consequential downward spiral of negative mood and how we relate to others, and then so goes the cycle. So then how do we build confidence? We often want to wait to have confidence before we do something, and this really is a mistake. As I mentioned before, and maybe you can think of a challenging interaction or situation that you want to be able to approach with more confidence. It could be at work, maybe in sales or approaching people or meeting new people in the context of starting a new relationship or even dating or whatever it is for you. Our tendency is to wait to have this confidence before engaging in that action. And I want to assure and confirm with you that we do not gain confidence by waiting for it. So if you've ever had a difficult task that you've had to do, maybe even think of an area that you feel confident in your life right now, you would have had challenges that you had to overcome, that you needed to really push through in order to achieve whatever particular goal is. It could be even as simple as a difficult yoga pose, or going for an extra mile in your run or your walk, something physical even. Or it could be something more on that mental emotional side of talking to someone in a difficult way or trying to present an idea that is really difficult to share. And if you picture the situation that you've been in, and regardless of the outcome, picture your action and the things that you did to help push through all of those, that difficult challenge, whatever it was. And just noticing your own behavior in that. How did you feel afterwards? Making that choice to really push through and to stick with something and have this perseverance to overcome the doubt or the fears that we were experiencing at the time, that is what builds confidence. You really can't wait for a confidence to come. Action produces confidence. It's almost in a way that you're proving to yourself that you can in fact do something. And it is absolutely okay to start small. And something even like a physical challenge, sometimes it's easier for people rather than a mental challenge. Or it could even be something like following one of our mindfulness activities that we did before and really persevering through and sitting with it. Even though your mind was somewhere else, there's not necessarily a right way to do it. It's just persevering through to really meet that goal of maybe the timeline that you're projecting, or whatever it is that physical goal is that you're really pushing through. And if you doubt yourself, you can really, again, just set your mind to have that deep determination to really sit with it and then stick through it and have that outcome. And the whole idea too is to really not judge that, not judge the process of how it's done, not judge even the outcome of how it's done, but that effort is what will build that confidence, and that's the part that we want to focus on. Just bask in that achievement of having been able to actually do this thing. We tend to rush through and dismiss the positive side of something after we've accomplished it, and that is really important, to recognize your achievement and recognize your effort. Pushing through to build confidence, especially in that fear or whatever we're feeling, can feel very vulnerable, and it can be quite scary. Vulnerability is one of those 8 difficult emotions identified by Dr. Joan Rosenberg that we've discussed. And when we persevere through these feelings of vulnerability and through the wave of emotion that can come from it, it peaks and then it'll slowly dissipate. And as we sit with that, as we push through it in terms of our determination and in terms of being with that feeling, to just allow that wave to happen and still being in our action, taking that action, whatever it is, that again will build confidence. And why is it so important? Really because overcoming all of these difficult emotions that we feel all the time when we meet that resistance is going to help us achieve absolutely everything that can feel difficult. And when we overcome that little bit, or we have a plan or an action to overcome that little piece, it's going to just have a tremendous impact on us. Brene Brown is a researcher that investigates shame and vulnerability, and in a lecture she gave in 2017, she says, "Vulnerability is the birthplace of everything we want more of in our lives." And so as we move into our mindfulness activity, where we can be exposed to this vulnerability and really overcome those feelings with our persistence and pushing through, we can work through all of these emotions. So today we're going to go through activity of emotional freedom technique. So it's a tapping exercise, and we've done this before. It helps us to create a space where we can recognize the things that we're really finding difficult. Sometimes even naming them can be a huge thing that we can bring forward that just helps to really dissipate and almost diffuse some of these difficult emotions. So we're going to name them for sure. We're going to discuss, you're going to write them down if you want to even. That can be really helpful, and just say them out loud. And then we're going to tap through some of the different acupuncture points. So we're going to address one area today. So pick somewhere that you want to improve your confidence on. I'm going to make suggestions as we move through it. And if we want to have if you're struggling at all with coming up with some of these ideas or the things to say, feel free to reach out. There's lots of resources on emotional freedom technique. It's really helpful to go through with a practitioner as well, and we can find someone that can help you with that. And then I'm happy to provide some of this information here too, or some of these ideas hopefully will be helpful for you. So just pick an area of confidence that you want to increase. Maybe again, talking to someone new or initiating a difficult conversation, more confidence at work or in a particular task, or more confidence in public speaking. It's a big fear that a lot of people have. You can write this idea down just to provide a little bit of a sequential movement for you through this. So I'm going to pick more confidence in public speaking. And the first thing that we want to do is really to be real with yourself and discover exactly where you are in this moment in relation to that. So we're not going to try and force a positive statement, which sometimes we tend to do in emotional freedom technique and in tapping. We just want to find exactly what that statement is now for you and what is true. And then we're going to tap through it. So the points that we're tapping on, we're going to go through and we'll just say the sentences as we start. So they're at the side of your hands, this karate chop point, and we're going to start with that. And so my sentence is about public speaking, and speaking in a large group. So even though I'm afraid I wouldn't perform well in speaking in a large group, I completely and deeply accept myself. And we're going to tap on this point and we're going to repeat that several times. Even though I'm afraid I wouldn't perform well in speaking in a large group, I completely love and accept myself. And that last part you always want to add on. I completely love and accept myself. Whatever your sentence is, and I completely love and accept myself. And then we're going to move to our eyebrows. Even though I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to speak clearly in speaking in a large group, I completely love and accept myself. You can just modify it slightly as well. We're going to move to the sides of the eyes. I'm afraid people wouldn't like the way I present the information. And then under the eyes, I'm afraid it wouldn't be interesting to them. And how else are you feeling? What are the other emotions that come up? I feel inadequate at the thought of speaking in a large group. And moving to under the chin, I feel inadequate in that thought. And then under your collarbone, I can feel my heart race when I think about standing up in front of a large group. I can feel anxious. And then just over your heart, it's on your left side a little bit, and you can also tap in the center. I feel inadequate. I'm afraid I wouldn't perform well. And we want to keep tapping on those. Oh, and then the top of your head. I'm afraid I feel inadequate and that I wouldn't perform well when speaking in a large group. We want to continue tapping out the negative feelings until they've completely dissipated. So till they neutralize and they don't have this energy behind them anymore. And if that's not quite there for you, continue tapping it out as you continue saying all of the things that you're really truly feeling about that particular issue. And when that feels like it's dissipated, we're going to find the next most true statement that's just a little bit positive. So something that maybe is neutral. Even being open to the idea that there could possibly be a positive outcome. So I'm open to the idea that it could be a huge success of me speaking in large groups. I actually become excited at the thought of speaking in large groups. I'm excited at the impact that speaking in large groups could have. I'm open to the idea that this could be a really positive experience. I'm open to the idea that even if I'm nervous, it could be a really positive experience. And then under the chin, I do get excited at the thought of public speaking, especially in large groups. I'm excited of the under the collarbone. I'm excited about the idea that public speaking could lead to more invitations to speak. And then over the heart, I'm excited at the thought of speaking in large groups. And again, continue tapping until you feel even more positive resignation with, or that you resonate with even a more positive sentence. So something like we might transition then to, I'm confident that even if I feel nervous, I know I could do a good job. Don't force these sentences, just make sure that they are something that you truly believe in the moment. And then up to the eyebrows. Speaking in front of large groups is a really exciting opportunity that I do feel ready for. I'm confident that even if I feel nervous, I could really do a great job speaking in large groups. I'm confident that I know my material well and that I could be engaging. I've done talks before where I've had really positive feedback and I know I could do it again. I know speaking in a large group would really feel successful after it's done. I'm really excited at an opportunity to speak in front of large groups. And I get excited at the thought that this could lead to even more invitations to speak in large groups. And then at the top of your head, speaking in front of large groups for me would feel like an exciting opportunity. And I think I could be successful in it. So just continue to tap those out until you really are resonating with that idea that you want to go forward with. So having that now you're, whatever it was, if you had a fear of approaching someone before or of doing a sales call, work through those difficult emotions first. We can't jump to the end and push through to a positive statement. We just want to start with where you're actually at and then move through as it naturally occurs. Tapping sessions can be up to an hour even of working through some of these emotions, or sometimes even longer. And then sometimes they can take days that we just want to work on one little part of it one day and then something else the next day. I challenge you this week to really go through and just see where you can start to modify and gain some benefit from some of these activities of really being mindful and present with the emotions that you're feeling, and then adding on the emotional freedom technique process and the procedure, how you're doing it. Thank you so much for joining today and for building confidence with me and for engaging in this practice. So definitely please try this out in other areas of your life, and I look forward to seeing how confident we can all get. Don't hesitate to reach out for support if you really feel like you need more guidance with that, and sometimes a step-by-step process through this, or really focusing on what even to consider or the thoughts to go forward with, can help. And I am excited to really see that the fruits of your labor can truly change your life. Tune in next week. We're going to dig into a little deeper about the subconscious mind and how we can, again, align in order to be even more resilient and to really get excited about this, about keeping our identity in a positive work frame of mind rather than feeling judged or having a negative identity of ourselves, because that's where it all comes from. Thanks for joining me on Mental Fortress Mondays.